The final live event of the 2022 Business Summit. It's been a great week. Of course, if you've missed any of the live sessions, we have recorded everything. We even had a whole slew of different pre-recorded workshops that you can access anytime. Business Summit webpage, pkchamber.ca. We're just going to fill the air for another 30 seconds, get everyone in, and then we're going to kick it off. Get your coffees, get your smiling faces. Feel free to turn your cameras on if you like. Perfect. Welcome to the 2022 Business Summit. Like we said, this is the final live event of the week. We're excited to be talking sustainability in business today. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining us today, for joining us throughout the week, for participating, for watching the content online, listening away while you're working. We appreciate it. Good morning and welcome on behalf of Peterborough and the Kawarthas Economic Development and Peterborough and the Kawarthas Chamber of Commerce. We partner every year to bring this business summit to all of you. And this year we had a bit of a hybrid option. So we're grateful for all of our attendees, our speakers, our panelists. It's been a fantastic week and this community has really brought it together. So please, speaking of community, take a moment to recognize our sponsors. Follow our sponsors on their social channels, check out their websites. They've got lots and lots of great information for businesses. The summit sponsor is the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC. We've got our knowledge sponsor or our profile sponsor, Nexicom. Nexicom has a great interview on the summit page. You'll have to check it out. They've got a bit of a rural internet update on there. And of course, our knowledge sponsors, Peterborough, or Microwage, Peterborough Whitby, and Linwoodcroft Royal LePage Frank Real Estate. Thank you to our sponsors for helping fuel this event. And thank you for joining us today. Sustainability in business. It is a fantastic day to have a fantastic day. This Sustainability in Business workshop is led by Lesley Robb, who's the owner of Swell Co, and Natalie Stephenson, the hub coordinator with Green Economy Peterborough. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to carve out some time for questions and answers. So jot down your questions. You can put them in the chat. You can message them to me directly, or you can unmute yourself, turn your video on and ask. We do also have some poll questions that our guests are going to pull up throughout the presentation. So be prepared to engage for that. And a huge thank you to Lesley and Natalie today. We appreciate your time, your insight, your expertise. You're just brilliant. We are grateful. So Natalie is the coordinator, is the hub coordinator for Green Economy Peterborough, a project of Peterborough Green Up. She was once a small business owner herself. So Natalie is passionate about supporting and connecting local businesses who are taking action to build sustainability into their operations. And of course, Lesley Robb, owner of Swell Co, lots of sassy products coming out of her line. I love it. Now, Lesley is committed to cultivating a deeply sustainable model of business for herself, but for entrepreneurs everywhere. Lesley's been inspired to rethink entrepreneurship and to leverage her years of experience to help business owners make sustainability a part of their story by aligning their business practices, branding messages, and of course, visual branding. Over to you, Natalie and Lesley. Thank you.
Well, I have the great honor of welcoming us in a good way by respectfully acknowledging that we are located on the Treaty 20 Michi-Sagak territory and the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagak and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations. We acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. I'm just going to add to this because I don't know how many folks do land acknowledgements in their work. I do a lot of them. They're imperfect, clumsy step to take, but also an important first step to take for many organizations. They remind us not only of the responsibilities of the First Nations to protect the lands and waters in perpetuity, but also of our own roles and responsibilities as individuals and as organizations. So in 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission identified 94 calls to action. I'm sure many of you have heard of some of them, but among them was one specifically directed toward the corporate sector. offering business leaders concrete direction in the work toward reconciliation. So we think this is important that number 92 calls our companies to hire and train Indigenous talent, include Indigenous businesses in the supply chain, engage in meaningful consultation with the nations on whose land we are working, celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, and educate our staff on the history of Aboriginal folks, cross-cultural understandings, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. 92 also asks the corporate sector as a whole to recognize the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So 92 isn't one of those calls to action that the government can deliver. It's in the hands of business leaders who are typically not taught these responsibilities in our business courses by mentors. We're being called to learn this work now and take action to contribute to the decolonization of corporate Canada. It's a tall order, it's a lot, but as long as our organizations are willing to do the work and continue to take well-intentioned steps, the business community will be welcomed into the work of reconciliation. So I'm going to put some resources in the chat around this for folks who want to explore further, including that call to action number 92. If you weren't already aware of it, you could consider asking the people around you, the business networks around you to support, educate, and help you and your peers to fulfill your responsibilities as a treaty person and organization. Moving along. So we just wanted to start off super basics. What do we mean by sustainability? When we say the word sustainability in a business context, I know it can mean many things to many people. We could be talking about financial, fiscal sustainability, or we could be talking about environmental sustainability. But it's not a true either or, because a business cannot be financially stable without a stable environment around it. And so for our purposes today, it's the idea that we meet the needs of today without compromising the needs of the future. In practical terms, this means looking at how your business operations impact both your stakeholders and the planet, and working to maximize environmental, societal, and financial performance. So if we broaden that definition to include those stakeholders, we're transitioning into a green economy. So a green economy is defined as aiming for sustainable development without degrading the environment. And in our definition, it's an inclusive transition, leaving no one in the community behind. So why is this important? I suspect that everyone who's come to this summit offering today understands that this transition is necessary as we're experiencing a climate crisis. So Canada, having the 4th highest emissions per capita of all countries in the world, has set a target to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Our province and our local municipalities set targets and made commitments to protect our communities, our economies, and the environment from climate change. Meeting these collective goals will require an inspired response with contributions from our governments, from citizens, and from local businesses like all of ours. And as you'll see, when we talk about the sustainable development goals, when it comes to sustainability, everything is connected and allows us to view the world through the lens of leaving no one behind. Tackling issues such as livable wages, diversity and inclusion, poverty in our communities, clean water, and overconsumption are all facets of sustainability with the goal of positively creating a planet where all living things flourish. If you assess your business right now, you're probably already addressing some of these issues. Okay. So what connects and motivates folks like Lesley and other Green Economy Peterborough members to take on this challenge? I lost the slide for you, Les, but it's so
no worries. I can talk about this. So thanks so much, Tiffany and Natalie, for having me here today and for the wonderful introduction and land acknowledgement. But yeah, Natalie and I are going to talk about connecting the business case to sustainability. And in my case in particular, I am an entrepreneur, but I'm also pursuing a master's of arts and sustainability studies, and I'm doing a lot of research on how to redefine entrepreneurship in this time. So a major driver is bringing your business values into alignment with the values of your company leadership and moving beyond profit normative visions for business. And I think this is a really, really crucial time to do this. So of course, every business has to be profitable to be sustainable, But businesses can also be a tremendous force for good. And we need to sort of really look at this and what sort of challenges are also opportunities for us to do good in our communities. So as a business owner, I can be profitable. If I can be profitable and give back to my community and continuously improve the supply chain so it does no harm, or better yet, has a positive impact, then that's the new definition of success. As business owners, we talk a lot about breaking even financially. So we have to look at our environmental and social impacts in the same way. So it's no longer enough to break even in terms of sustainability. So we've really been in the red for far too long, and it's time to start having a positive impact in the way that we do business. So we have to look at our environmental and our social impacts in the same way. So when we move into the future where we're generating positive impacts or profits that strengthen and restore systems in which we live and do business, then everybody wins. And like I said before, we can see this as a challenge or an opportunity to revisit our business models and then adapt them and become resilient for the future. Not just for the future of our own businesses, but for future generations. And we really have no other choice. So one way that I like to look at this is the family-run business model, which is sort of often underappreciated in terms of, the sort of culture in terms of what types of business get press and are often, given a lot of accolades. But the family-run business model is one that invests in the future, and it really comes down to an emotional investment that they care. They really care about the future generations, and well before any of us were doing that, Indigenous communities had this type of business model as well. So the video that I sent on Indigenous economic reconciliation will kind of give you an idea of how that business model is really critical for reconciliation, but also for the way that we see different businesses. So, and how we redefine success in entrepreneurship. So I'll pass it over to Natalie, and she's going to go through, some ways to make.
I found the slide.
Oh, there we go. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
Certainly amongst our members, we do hear that, the motivation to, make sustainable changes is the right thing to do. That's, of course, something that we hear all the time amongst our business members and we speak to, and it's crucially important. It's a big part of the movement. But there are other reasons to become sustainable. So if you or other decision makers in your organization aren't ready to redefine just yet, you have to make a case for this to a board of directors, for example. There's still quite a strong business case to be made for taking action, as sustainability is now a priority for lots of our stakeholders, anyone from our investors to our customers to the public at large. So let's look at some of the most common business drivers we're seeing for small and medium businesses across Canada through the Green Economy Canada network. Of course, we have operating costs. There's great evidence that for many businesses, operational costs can be reduced by limiting waste in the processes, using materials and energy more efficiently. So companies can often see quite a quick return on investment from energy savings, for example, by investing and moving toward more efficient buildings, vehicles, and other equipment. Absolutely key to making the case. We have risk mitigation. So we're seeking, as businesses, some stability in a fairly volatile world, in a fairly volatile economy, especially now. But when we look at the risks that businesses are facing resulting from climate change, the cost of not taking action might be greater than the cost of taking action. We have real property and supply chains that are increasingly at risk of climate-related extreme weather. We're seeing that globally, trillions and trillions of dollars in damages, and the trend is expected to increase as the planet gets closer to 1.5 degrees of global warming. Looking at your business through the lens of climate change can help you identify where you might be most at risk. So it varies by industry. It might be something, your energy prices, gas prices. For others, it might be rising insurance costs or a supply chain issue from extreme weather or flooding, where your suppliers are located. We saw a large scale supply shutdown in BC late last year due to those mudslides. So that's the type of thing we're facing. We're all facing that in the business climate. Government regulations are also a big issue for a lot of sectors. So if they're not already implemented in, for the organization you work with, they may be coming in, and they'll undoubtedly cost businesses money. The federal carbon price is expected to reach $170 a ton by 2030. And so operations that work to decrease the energy that they're using on the front end will protect their businesses for the long term from higher costs. And those pressures will continue to grow on businesses to take measures like switching from natural gas as a heat source to electricity that can be derived from renewable sources. Yeah, another really big driver we're seeing, especially post sort of in COVID, is that employees are expecting more from their employers than ever before. By 2025, millennials will comprise 75% of the workforce, and this demographic cares more about values-aligned employment than any previous generation. The 76% of millennials have been polled and consider an employer's social and environmental commitments when they decide where to work. The surveys say that employees would actually quit their jobs in a current role and transition into one that was offered by a more environmentally responsible organization. Also, it's obvious to folks now, because we're educated in this, that those commitments to the environment are authentic and credible and not greenwashing. Most of us can see that a mile away. And the last one I've highlighted here is brand enhancement. Publicly communicating environmental values can help your business find new customers and increase your reputation in a community as a green business. And if those customers are the end users, you'll meet their need for sustainable alternatives, and they will tell their friends. I found this great laundry detergent. I could tell you about it. If your customers are other links on the supply chain, you'll add value to their final products. There's a quote: "The fastest way to a green product is to buy ingredients from someone who has already made it." And so we have some other considerations. I'm sure there are things that we've missed. Obviously, there's amazing gaps in the market for businesses that are future focused, have new technology, are transitioning us into better, cleaner materials, sources, energies. Responding to customer demands. If your customers are sending you letters, are asking for your environmental commitments, these are really good indicator that not only should be communicating about what you're doing, you should be doing more. Responding to peers in the market to keep up with your peers. Sometimes someone will make a transition to a greener product and suddenly they're getting your business. So it's important to stay on top of what's happening in your sector. And then attracting investors is also a piece of the puzzle, that often there are folks looking for sustainable projects to invest in because that's where they're at. And if we've missed anything that you might consider in terms of becoming more sustainable, feel free to throw it in the chat or mention it. We're going to hit a little discussion period here. I want to break it up a bit. So I'm going to launch a poll. And the first question. Can you see it? Is it up? Awesome.
Oh, I can't see the poll now. Can everybody else? Are we good?
I can't see it, Natalie. Sorry. This
That's
is Hillary.
okay.
There we go.
Hi. All right. For some reason, just moving it helped. Just give it another couple seconds. Okay. So we have Can you see the results? Yes? Awesome. Yeah, so we have a wide spread here between just starting out, building, and advanced folks. Who chose advanced? Does anyone want to speak to where their workplace is at on sustainability? Where, you know, we'd love to hear stories of the things that folks are already doing from any of these categories. Shy crew today. Okay. Awesome. And I have one more poll. Let me see the question. Awesome. Oh, some of our responses got squashed, Tiffany. Okay. Awesome. It's good to know who's here and what their motivations are for us to learn from you folks as well. So risk management and or aligning with your vision or values is the top. Does anyone want to speak to what drives them to think about this in their business? I know it's Friday morning. Okay.
It's great to see though. That's awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome. And just honestly that folks have thought through it is awesome because, you know, we're always looking for more allies in this community. Okay. So yeah, the most common thing I hear in this work is that a business owner might not know where to start. So there's not one set way. I don't know where the poll keeps popping up on my screen here. There we go. All right. There's not one set way to get started. Everybody has different priorities, motivations. Every business is different. But there's a few ideas of where we could begin. And one of those places is, I'm going to turn it over to Lesley to chat through the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, so if you want to put your hands up, you're welcome to. But if you've heard of the Sustainable Development Goals, it would be great to know sort of everybody's familiarity with that. But I'll just start talking about them. And we can definitely have a conversation about them later. But the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals that were adopted. They were set out by the United Nations in 2015 and adopted by all member states. And what they do is they provide a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. So at its heart are these 17 goals, which are an urgent call to action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. And they recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with the strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth at the same time. So while we're addressing all of these what we call wicked problems, we're also tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. So earlier when we were talking about sort of what is sustainability, this kind of defines sustainability as something that's interconnected. So we can't really address one goal without the other. So if we don't address poverty or hunger, it's really difficult for us to address some of the other issues like life below water or climate action. So having 17 different goals is really useful because we can kind of first familiarize ourselves with all of the 17 goals. And so if you go, I'm going to put some chat resources in the chat shortly, but if you get familiar with the goals, you can see that for each goal, there are kind of like sub goals and how the planet and different countries can achieve these globally, but also it's very critical to look at these on a local level because businesses can have and sort of any organization can have the most impact in their local communities. So it's good to sort of look at these from a perspective of where you live and where your business operates. So I'm going to go through some steps to kind of vision what that looks like for your own business. And they're guided by something called the Sdg Compass. And I'm going to share a link for that. So these are the goals from the UN. And I highly encourage everybody to kind of get familiar with those. And then this is the Sdg Compass that I'm going to be talking about. And then also Green Economy Canada has some very useful resources on this and some workshops that you can that they've pre-recorded and you can go through, all kinds of resources there. So the first step with your business is to just, like I said, get really familiar with these SDGs and what they mean. So like all of the little subcategories of how we can kind of tackle these issues. And then the second and sort of most important part is choosing SDGs that align with your company values. So we've already identified that's really important for a lot of people. So how can those values align with these specific goals that we can tackle together or collectively? And you can commit to a few, or you can assess your company's value chains and then the positive and negative impacts that your business is currently having in terms of environmental and social impacts. And then see sort of opportunities. What are the gaps, and how can you impact these specific goals in the future, today and in the future? So if anybody has already been familiar with the SDGs, it would be great to hear which ones your business aligns with specifically. I'll give my business as an example. I really focus on number 4 and number 5, so quality education and gender equality. And a lot of the efforts that I put in terms of my impact from my business, they definitely address these specific goals. So quality education for girls, I work with Plan Canada, but I also work with a local organization called Tracks to focus on Indigenous-led education in the area. But those are just some really brief examples. If you have any, speak up and I'd love to hear them. But I know it's a quiet group, so I can keep going. Okay. Well, anyway, if anybody wants to talk about that soon, I'd love to hear about it. So the next step is to set goals. So once you've assessed how you can align your business with and your impact with some specific SDGs, set specific goals. And this is important for leadership to take on, but it's also really, really key. And I know that Natalie mentioned this before, but it's really important to involve all stakeholders, internal and external. So really getting some feedback from your customers, but more importantly, your employees, and then having somebody in the company or a committee or a team that is really, staying on top of sustainability and keeping the entire company accountable. That's huge. So the next step would be to integrate sustainability and SDGs into the core of your business to create that systemic change. So align the goals that you've chosen with key metrics and then measure your progress. So, if you have a progress of, and obviously green economy is hugely important in helping businesses do this specifically for greenhouse gas emissions, but you can also apply these metrics to diversity and inclusion in your business, the amounts that you're giving back into the community. There's all kinds of different metrics. And just like anything else in your business, it's really important to track those to make sure that you're making progress, just like you would with any sort of other goal in your business. And then this is where you have opportunities to engage in those partnerships to support from other organizations and other businesses. So like I said, working with Green Economy Canada, but maybe you are working with similar or like-minded businesses in your community where you can have sort of an impact together. And then having a collective action. And then finally, once you're tracking all these metrics that we're talking about, like you would with other areas of the business, report on your progress and be open, transparent, honest, It's really key to let people know how that's going, particularly if you have different people that are invested in the work that you're doing, and just keep sharing that with your stakeholders, and make sure that they're, the priorities are being met. And then the SDGs just provide simply a common language and purpose. So this is a language that we can speak across the world, but also in our local communities. And when we have this as a common language, we can have more consistent and effective communication on sustainability, but also how our progress is going. Any questions there for the SDGs? I'm just going to pop a couple more things in the chat. So this is a guide from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it kind of outlines the specific ways that businesses can address each goal in their business with examples and case studies. And then also, if you're interested in doing like a free course, there's one through Coursera called it's integrating the SDGs into your business. So yeah, again, just don't think of it as something that's scary. Like if you want to address, poverty and hunger, you're probably already doing that somehow with different organizations that you're working with in your community. So keep focusing on that. Don't. I think sometimes businesses get caught up in the sort of the climate action part of it, but you have to really understand that these are all connected, that when you address any of these SDGs, that you're really contributing to climate actions, the end, not the end goal. This is a destination. This is not a destination. It's a big lifelong journey, but we're all contributing to positively impacting climate change when we address any specific SDG. So thanks so much. Pass it back over to Natalie.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I mean, I talk a lot about climate action because that's the work that I do with Green Economy Peterborough. But of course, we're looking at the work that our members are doing outside of that and trying to, give them recognition for the things that they do that are contributing to other goals, because the climate crisis is in part a crisis of inequality. So it's really crucial to look at the big picture. Thank you, Lesley, for bringing that today. So in general, I, get lots of questions and lots of, excuses, not excuses always, but sometimes just barriers to doing the work. So what stops companies like all of ours from taking action on any issue, let alone the climate? Number one is always time and capacity. As Lesley mentioned, having someone dedicated to this role is the biggest indicator and key to success for organizations looking at tackling sustainability. Business owners often don't have the time or capacity to dedicate to implementing or identifying actions that they want to take, especially with competing business pressures all over the place. That's absolutely something we hear all the time. They need extra support. Customers' willingness to pay. Often when we're doing bigger projects, we're making donations, we're investing in new infrastructure or new processes in our organizations to become more sustainable. It can drive up immediate costs. It depends on what you're working on. But folks are often questioning whether or not their market, the customer, is willing to reward them for prioritizing sustainability. So that's a question that a lot of businesses haven't asked their customers or communicated about, but it's still something that's kind of in the air. They're not sure. They're nervous to change because of their perceived customers' unwillingness to pay a little extra or do things slightly different. Knowledge is also a major barrier. So it can definitely be a challenge to stay educated and in the know about supports that are available, like community organizations doing the work. Like it's difficult to do this and to stay on top of those opportunities, let alone draw connections between those opportunities and a particular project for your business. So that's definitely something we hear. And then upfront financial costs. So if folks want to make an investment and, purchase a solar array or, get an EV for their fleet, they often want to be sure that that's going to pay back rather quickly. So if it is, usually not an issue if folks have the ability to do that and see the value of it, but often that is a barrier to taking steps toward making improvements or changes. So yeah, external supports. I have a list of things that are supports for organizations looking to tackle sustainability. Funding and incentives, a big one. So sustainability linked loans, grants, and banking products. Lesley, you would be best to speak to these opportunities since you've recently been successful in receiving a grant. If you want to walk us through how that happened, that'd be awesome.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So there is a lot of money out there for sustainability-led projects. So it can be kind of difficult to sort of navigate the sort of the different options and systems, but I really do believe you just put in a bit of work that it's going to pay off. So I'll put a couple of links in again, but there's something called the Business Benefits Finder, and that's through the Government of Canada. And you can kind of go through, and I just sent it directly to someone. I'm sure that person will benefit from it as well. There we go. But you can go through and sort of lay out the criteria for sort of the any sort of sustainability project that you're working on, what type of business you are, the sector, all that kind of stuff, and they'll generate some of the different opportunities that are available. And then I recently was the recipient of the Desjardins Good Spark grant. So they have grants for different projects that aren't related to sustainability, but I applied specifically for one that was sustainability driven, because after doing some work with Green Economy Peterborough, I realized that my biggest impact, in addition to the other really important work that I'm doing in my business, the biggest sort of place that I could have a positive impact right now is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through my shipping process. So whether it's the packaging, the carriers, offsetting those carbon emissions, that was a project that I wanted to tackle based on the assessment that I had done with Green Economy. And so when applying for a grant, I can't under stress that how important it is to have a really specific project in mind in terms of sustainability. And this goes for any grant, really. Having a specific project in mind, what the goals for that project are, the metrics. So like what kind of funding are you looking for, and where is each sort of amount going to go to, really break it down. And it can be quite simple, and you'd be surprised like what will come back. So I was very surprised to get the grant myself, and it's been huge. And with that, I can really have a tremendous impact immediately in terms of reducing my greenhouse gas emissions. So and those are open to all kinds of different businesses. So just really look at where you can have an impact right now, align those with your some goals and metrics, just kind of like I said with the SDGs, and set it out like a project. And it's no different than coming up with a specific sort of project within your business in terms of anything that you're working on. So just treat it the same way. It's having that sort of same level of commitment that you would in any other part of your business. And it's really going to drive success for the project, and then also for getting the funding as well. Yeah, I guess, is there anything else you would add to that, Natalie?
I just think that it's about time, but it's great to see that the banking sector is beginning to recognize like that there's so much opportunity here, and that their customers want to see their money invested in things like sustainability linked loans. We have like new commercial loans coming from HSBC and like green equipment financing, things like that are becoming more available to folks that want to do this. And that's very specific, like identifying the project that's going to be the best thing to invest in is the key.
Yeah.
And otherwise, like I sort of glossed over funding and incentives and jumped right into, the loans there. But for businesses to take on big retrofits and green projects, many may need to have access to larger buckets of money to finance until they see a return on investment. So there are some programs that are available now, and we're seeing more government funding sort of in the pipeline that's expected to help businesses get toward those 2050 net zero goals for Canada. So if you inquire with your utility provider, most of us are Hydro One, there are some Save on Energy programs, there's Enbridge gas incentives and programs for specifically for business that are available. We recently hosted an event featuring those providers, and I can send you the link to that event if you're interested. Beyond those supports, there's also always sustainability consultants, like private consultants and firms that specialize in sustainability and offer services. They can help you figure out, and analyze your business impact and prioritize your actions. So someone like an energy auditor for a larger facility, who could provide a detailed look at opportunities for your building, et cetera. And the downside, of course, of hiring consultants is that they can be quite costly, but they're very good at what they do, that's for sure. And then, of course, I'm going to plug myself here, a green economy hub like Green Economy Peterborough, a nonprofit-led green economy hub like the one I represent. We have great tools as well to help companies measure their impact, create an action plan, and set robust targets. And we always emphasize embedding sustainability within the organization. So we help also just to train up folks that are in our community to help get at those barriers related to knowledge and capacity, because it's a movement. We need more folks. We need as many people as we can to have the capacity to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to open up to questions if we have some time.
Let me get myself unmuted. We definitely have time. I'm just going to jump on the screen with you. There we go. One that came in chat was, have you seen an uptake in businesses goal setting for sustainability during the pandemic?
It's kind of interesting. We have seen like certain businesses have definitely become more interested as a result of the pandemic in doing this work. Maybe because they're thinking about like bigger picture things, and how connected and reliant they are on there being there being a business community, and how having those connections, all kind of having the time and to think through like that we are reliant on supply chains, we are reliant on customers, on there being customers in walking by, and you being allowed to be open. So there's a broader picture here I think folks are engaged in through the pandemic, although it can be challenging to have businesses commit and invest in projects. It just depends on where they're at. And we also did see quite a few businesses in Peterborough and the Kawarthas, especially manufacturers, that weren't very affected or are busier. One of our members, cabinetry, they had like an uptick in kitchen renovations, for example. So busier than ever.
Absolutely. I know landscaping too,
Yeah.
and the start of it, but then it blew up right away. Yeah. So there's definitely been some pain out there, but there's been some remarkable kind of pivots and coming together as well. Lesley, I noticed you unmuted for this question. Did you want to jump in? Did you have kind of something to?
Oh, I was just going to say that, like the pandemic definitely forced businesses to sort of revisit their business models and sort of their priorities. And I think it's really important to look at how we adapt and become more resilient in terms of climate change. It's sort of the same thing. So, we've had to kind of walk through this crisis and challenge over the last couple of years, but the reality is that will continue in the future, not to be like super bleak, but be really optimistic about the opportunities that can present, because we saw a lot of really hopeful examples of how businesses were able to adapt in the pandemic, and I think that will be true for climate change as well. And now's the time. So yeah, it's definitely forced people to sort of revisit how they operate, and it's, with that sort of new mindset, I think it's important to now tackle climate change. I know it seems monumental after the past 2 years, but really, really, really necessary. So,
And like you
to anybody that's doing that, yeah.
And like you said, like when you kind of sort it out like a project and have, these little goals that you set, then you're just taking these steps, right?
Exactly.
Like you map it out and it's just an action a day or an action a week, right?
Yeah.
And sort of speaking kind of on those lines, and Natalie, you kind of touched here, but I was kind of curious, do you know of any collaborations? Are businesses kind of working together to do plans for sustainability? Are we kind of seeing that type of activity happen?
Certainly, we're seeing a lot of interest in that type of activity happen. I think that the more, the more businesses can see the connections and realize that they're helping other businesses to get to a sustainable place, the more motivated they are to do that work. I'm seeing a lot of like collaboration within our network in terms of like asking questions, asking for their recommendations on certain, suppliers or renovators, things like that. That comes up frequently for sure. And I do see that things have happened during the pandemic, like watching some of our businesses in the community come together to produce huge quantities of hand sanitizer, transition and pivot and work on cool projects like that together. In terms of sustainability, yeah, it's really varied across the community, but I would love to see more. I'd love to see more sort of outside the box thinking in terms of, services and things that could be brought to the community if there was enough demand.
Right. I can definitely see that too. Maybe businesses working together to kind of come up with a plan. Maybe they're sourcing things together. So it's not, there's not all these kind of multiple things happening, but getting aligned, it's really great. I've had another question come in here. Businesses who promote their green initiatives on social media are really inspiring. How can businesses use social media to get the word out and inspire other businesses, even if they're only able to take small steps?
Well, Lesley's the queen of this. So
I would just say don't hold back. Definitely tell I did that for far too long. Sustainability has been a really big part of my business since day one, but I don't know why. I just didn't really feel comfortable talking about it. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I just felt like I didn't know enough at the time. And I think a lot of business owners feel like that. Like they say like, maybe I'm not an expert, and I myself am no expert either. So I just think it's better to sort of start that imperfect journey rather than not saying anything at all, and focus on just opportunities to educate your customers and any stakeholders in your business on what you're doing. And then also, holding it's great because then, once you kind of put your voice out there, you definitely have to be accountable to what you're saying. Doing it, the cost of doing it wrong is quite high, but don't be afraid of that. Like nobody has the right answer. There's no one way to solve this problem. So just having the conversation is incredibly important. Just be authentic and honest and transparent, and hold other businesses to account. So like when you're dealing with your own suppliers, just have, like really friendly conversations about how both of you can do better. It's okay. That's really important. Ask for things that you need. But yeah, in terms of social media, have the conversation and just focus on the education component. And yeah.
All right. Be authentic, get out of your
Yeah.
way, just do it, just jump. But doing good is doing good, right? So anytime you're taking some good action, put it on social media. It spreads goodness kind of throughout, right? Like positivity spreads, and we want sustainability to spread. So align those two messages.
Yeah.
And like Lesley said, just jump in, just do it. Maybe challenge another business. I don't know, if I'm a coffee shop and I've got eco-friendly products, maybe I tag another coffee shop and be like, hey, so-and-so, look what we got, and just make it fun, right? It's kind of that collaboration over competition, work together, and achieve some goals. I just, again, I love that infographic, by the way, that just kind of had the goal setting kind of laid out. Even just looking at that, you can kind of piece together your own own plan. And we appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you so much for walking us through this today. I'm going to give one last chance to ask any other questions before we go. And the last one that I have, while we potentially get one in, is if you could give us 2 quick things we can do today, this weekend, what would those 2 things be?
My goodness. I'm going to plug the Shifting Gears Challenge at Green Up places. It starts in May. It's a commuter challenge, and you can count those work from home trips. You can count any alternative transportation to work, even if it's by Zoom. And it's it starts in May, and you can go to greenup.on.ca to sign up. And there's lots of tools there, and there's even workshops on how to fix a flat tire if you're biking, things like that. So it's very supportive. Do you have one, Lesley?
Yeah, mine would definitely be do some the first step I talked about with the SDGs is just getting familiar with them. So that would absolutely do some bedtime reading about the SDGs and just start thinking about which few definitely speak to you or your goals as a business and how you could incorporate in achieving some of those goals in your own business. So just getting comfy with them. That's what I would do. Curl up, read about them.
And it's work that feels good, right? Benefiting the environment, our world, our communities. These are all goals that feel good. It's personal and professional. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lesley and Natalie. We are grateful. Thanks coming into the comments. These were 2 great things that we can do this week. So it looks like the PKED team is going to be rolling out some of
I really hope so.
Absolutely. For your next meeting, instead of driving, book it on Zoom, walk downtown, whatever it is. I'm definitely a walker. I try to walk everywhere I can, do all those steps, all these little micro actions, they all add up, right? So thank you. Thank you so much, Lesley. Robb, Swell Made Co. Check out their website, see the cool things that Lesley is up to on social channels. Natalie Stephenson, Green Economy Peterborough, and Green Up. Check out their website. They've got a fantastic store, everything you need for sustainability. We've got access to the resources. So this concludes our final live event of the 2022 Business Summit. Thank you so much, ladies. We appreciate your time, your expertise, your brilliance, suggestions. It really is really great tools on the other side of this workshop today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you know somebody that can benefit, everybody can benefit from this information, send them the pre-recording. We'll have it recorded and up on the Business Summit webpage as well as on our YouTube channel. Once again, a big shout out to our supporters, our sponsors, the Business Development Bank of Canada, Nexicom, Microwage Peterborough Whitby, and Lynn Woodcroft, Royal LePage Frank Real Estate. We are grateful for your support. Thank you for joining us all week long. Tag the Peterborough and Kawarthas Chamber of Commerce on social channels. Tag Peterborough and the Kawarthas Economic Development. We partner every year to bring this event to all of you. It's a fantastic partnership, a good collaborative team PTBO approach, and we are grateful. Again, we've recorded all of the live events from this week. You can catch them on the website, along with all of the curated webinars that we had set up for you. pkchamber.ca, click Business Summit. You can also tour on over to our YouTube channel. And remember, if you need anything, Peterborough and the Kawarthas Chamber of Commerce, Peterborough and Kawarthas Economic Development, we're your business backup. We are here for you. Reach out to us. We can help. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Again, thank you, Natalie and Lesley. Take good care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.